Hello, welcome from the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter. This is our 162nd class, and this is May 1st, 2025. Tonight we have the pleasure of having VanMiller here to present to us how BAs can use generative AI. My name is Thea Soren. I'm the president of this IIBA chapter. I've been in business analysis for almost 30 years, and along the way, I've led IIBA chapters for almost half of that time. I've had the pleasure of authoring the business analysis body of knowledge, among others, and founded a few organizations, including the BA Force Multiplier Movement. I'm also a business consultant, trainer, and mentor working worldwide. About the IIBA, if you're new to the IIBA, we're the global governing body for business analysts. We have about 30,000 members worldwide, 120 chapters worldwide, and 7 certifications. We are excited about making the world a better place, one business, one project, and one life at a time. What are the benefits of joining the IIBA? We receive training from chapters around the world, free access to about 11,000 excellent books, including the IIBA's business analysis body of knowledge, webinars, and more. Networking opportunities in a wide variety of formats and discounts on certification exams. I told you that the IIBA has 120 chapters worldwide. This is the Tampa Bay, Florida chapter, and this is our board. These are the folks who work behind the scenes for your benefit. We appreciate them working so diligently to keep us going. Our chapter strives to build a thriving community of empowered business analysts. And members of the Tampa Bay, Florida chapter are not limited to those that are here in the state of Florida. In fact, we've got members all over the world. It doesn't matter where you live. If your local chapter is not supporting you properly, the IIBA can be your chapter. If you want more information, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Why would you join our chapter? We offer multiple training sessions each week, including CBAP prep, all to benefit our participants becoming better and more impactful business analysts. You can see our upcoming events at our website, and those are kept updated by Esther, Alicia, and Amarachi. Thank you, ladies. And the updates are posted across LinkedIn and Facebook by Cliff, our Vice President of Marketing. You can access over 140 hours of our events on YouTube. Again, thanks to Cliff. And you can get an index of all of those recordings at Bob's amazing index. He's put in literally hundreds of hours to make that updated for you. You can just click on a topic and jump right into that part of that recording. While you're at Bob's website, look around. There's a trove of beneficial knowledge. The results of those trainings have resulted in these wonderful folks, students of our classes, reaching out to tell us that our training was a big part of their success and achieving their certification. Many of them have further demonstrated their value in the training as they've gone on to lead IIBA chapters here and around the world. One of them we just got today is our friend Kasi. And Kasi wrote this wonderful write-up that talks about why he values the work that we've done here and how it's benefited him. This is the only way we get paid, guys. We don't get money. We are spending our time and effort on this. So if we have benefited you, whether you have passed a certification or if we benefited you another way, if you could write in and tell us, that really is a boost for us. We want to know what we're doing well, and if there's something we can do better, we want to know that too. But it was really great of Kasi to put this together for us. He has earned his ECBA, which is entry-level certification, and now he's on his way to pursuing his CBAP certification, the Certified Business Analysis Professional, and that is the highest level that he can achieve. He is well on his way of doing that. As we continue to work for our community, we've created support for college students, our emerging professionals. We want to help them so that whenever they graduate college with not only a degree, we want them to also have a membership in a professional organization, a professional certification, and maybe more. This will put them head and shoulders above all of their peers. You can reach out to Kennedy Davis, our Director of Emerging Professionals, or me for more information. If you live in Florida and you want to meet in real life, We want to get to groups together in Jacksonville and Tampa and Orlando, wherever you live, and we can put you together with those groups. They're going to be chapter branches. We need one person to organize it. Everyone else can just meet. We're going to make it as easy as we can, but meeting in real life has benefits. In working to enlarge the education of our community, we've partnered with several organizations and people. The most important of those is you, the participant. Our goal is to get bleeding edge information to you as well as best practices. Uh, we post all of our partner content on our webpage, and I want to draw attention to IIBA chapters worldwide. These are all the chapters we are currently working with or have worked with in the last year. We are also working with the Oklahoma City business analysts and the Houston business analysts. They're getting ready to open brand new chapters. It is a pleasure and an honor to be part of that effort. We also partner with organizations here in Tampa, the Tampa PMI Suncoast group, Tampa Bay group, and the Suncoast group, the Tampa Bay product owners, and the Tampa Bay Women in Agile. The DOBAC group is actually in the UK, but partnering with them allows us to offer you, our participants, many additional benefits. Speaking of benefits, we also partner with 4 different recruiting companies. These are our recruiters that have either come on and provided us resources during our meetings, or they provide us additional training. These groups, Skills Development, Watermark, and Adaptive, provide training only, as well as some webinars and things so that everyone can participate. The benefits of our associations include discounts to our participants. The Bluegrass chapter has one more day for their BBAC. I'll be presenting tomorrow. They are offering a substantial discount if you'd like to participate in the additional day on that. Watermark Learning has offered us, our participants, a discount code of Tampa21. It's going to give you 40% off of their products. If you have any questions on that, let me know. But this is the test bank, the test question bank that I use for all of my training and in my training classes. Adaptive US has also offered us a 20% off of all of their live classes and on-demand courses, excluding IIBA exam vouchers. One of the benefits I like about Adaptive is they say if you take one of their CBAP classes, for example, you take this test, if you don't pass, they will pay for you to take it a second time. And if you don't pass it a second time, they'll pay for you to take it one more time. That's a lot of confidence in their ability to teach the material effectively. The Project Summit Business Analysis World coming up very soon, this next week. Bob and Seamus will be there. They are offering us a 10% off if you go in for the group rate. And the European Business Analysis Day is coming up. It's May 14th, 15th, and 16th. They're offering a 10% off because of our association with the BA Force Multipliers. Contact me for those details. In the news for IIBA, you know about the 3 certifications that are based upon the BABOK. You got some news here. For this one, the ECBA, there's going to be some changes. Will go into effect July 22nd. Critical changes. If you are ready to take the ECBA, I highly encourage you to get it done before July 22nd. So we want to get you through as fast as we can. If you need assistance, please reach out to me. The other 2 certifications, the CBAP and the CCBA, currently, if you're an IIBA member, you can get a $50 discount on the application price, bringing it down to $95. We know that there are jobs out there, and we know where some of the talent is. If you want to reach out to me, I'll play BA matchmaker to get qualified individuals to your desk. And to do something tangible to help our community find jobs, I created an open group on LinkedIn. I post jobs here daily from my network of about 15,000 connections, as well as the emails I receive. You are invited to add your jobs as well, or peruse as you wish. Coming up in the near future, next week, we have Stephanie. She's going to talk about enhancing workplace communications with emotional intelligence using the test called DISC. She teaches DISC. If you can take the DISC test before then, it's beneficial. If you want to wait till afterwards, that's fine too. But she's going to tell us why she thinks it's a good idea and helps it with communication in the workplace. David is going to come after that to talk about 4 practices for effective business analysis. He's been practicing business analysis for 20 years, and he's been gotten very good reviews from this particular talk. So I'm looking forward to that on May 29th. Looking in the future a little bit, we have an 8-week series coming in August and September. We're going to walk through an actual software development lifecycle. Those people who don't have any experience with the SDLC, this is going to give you a flavor of what it's like. It's going to be a real project. So I really hope that you plan on participating in that. Now for our presentation. Tonight, VanMiller is going to talk about how BAs can use generative AI. He's going to talk about high-level information about how generative AI and how it works, security considerations, use cases that BAs may find valuable. This is going to be half presentation and half conversation, so I look forward to that, but I want to tell you about VanMiller first. He's a certified business analyst professional with over 30 years of IT experience implementing and supporting complex business process at large companies. He lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, and currently working on projects for personal and commercial lines of insurance. He's also leading a small AI research team with the goal of helping BAs better understand AI and how to use the tool to make them more productive, and is now bringing this learning to you. I turn the screen over to you, Van.
All right. Thank you, Thea. So let me share my screen with you in my presentation. Hey, bear with me for a minute because I'm not a big Zoom user, but we'll get it in just a sec.
You're gonna be fine.
Oh
I
yeah,
see
it'll
Jenny
be
Stein in the
okay.
audience. Welcome, Jenny.
So let me get this going. And slideshow. And go from the beginning. Okay, you should see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay, just a second. Let me move a couple things around. So, all right. So everybody, thanks for coming tonight. Like Tia said, my name's VanMiller, and I'm a BA just like you. I've been leading a BA-focused AI research team at my company. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a member of the IIBA Bluegrass chapter in Lexington, Kentucky. I also work with Thea. So some of you might know me. I spent some time with you at the TampaBayIIBA study sessions. Those sessions helped me get my CBAP back in January. So thank you, Tampa Bay chapter, for that. Tonight, I want to share some things with you that I've learned about generative AI. And like Thea says, this is half presentation, half conversation. So it's a fairly informal presentation. And I want to, I'll share what I've learned, and I also want us to share our thoughts on the information as well. What I'll do is I have some spots where I'm going to pause for questions or discussions, or you can jump in. So let's get started. Generative AI is a new tool that you can add to your BA tool belt. It can help you in your day-to-day work. I will share and discuss the following: high-level information about how generative AI works, security considerations, which is something you really have to pay attention to, and also use cases that my little BA research team thought would be valuable. So I'll start with giving you kind of an understanding of AI. In the context of generative AI, the ecosystem looks like this. First, we have artificial intelligence. Now, when we talk about artificial intelligence, depending on the context, the word artificial can have several different meanings. In this case, it describes something created by or produced by human beings rather than occurring naturally. For example, artificial flowers. Artificial flowers are real, they're just not made by humans. instead, but they're just made by humans instead of nature. Artificial intelligence is similar. It is the science of making machines that can think like humans. Next, we have machine learning. Machine learning is computer systems that can learn and adapt without following explicit instructions, and can instead use algorithms and statistical models to analyze and draw inferences from patterns and data. After that, the next level down is deep learning. This is a subset of machine learning that teaches computers to process data in a way that has been inspired by the human brain. These are often referred to, or you'll hear them referred to, as neural networks. Now, last is generative AI, and that's really kind of our topic for tonight. Generative AI involves deep learning algorithms that are trained on vast amounts of data that can recognize, summarize, predict, and generate content. So, generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence that can create new content, such as text, images, music, or even code. And this is all based on the data that it's been trained on. So generative AI uses data that's stored in a model. The model is trained to learn patterns and relationships within the data. By using the training data, the AI can generate original outputs that resemble the training examples. The model holds the data and relationships and relationships that make natural language recognition possible. Natural language recognition requires lots of data. The models that hold this data are called large language models. These are often referred to as LLMs. Generative AI products like ChatGPT and Edge Copilot are based on large language models. They are generative pre-trained transformers, or GPTs. So let's talk about what a GPT is. So generative means the model can generate new content that was not explicitly programmed into it. Pre-trained means the model has been trained on how to associate the content it contains. So companies like Microsoft and Google have the resources to train the model on how to associate an enormous range of text from websites, books, articles, and other publicly available material from the internet. This training teaches the model what human language is, how words fit together, and so on. Pre-training is what makes natural language recognition possible. It's how systems like Copilot can understand your question and provide you with an answer. Transformer describes the architecture of the model. It is a type of neural network that is designed to handle sequential data like text. It uses vectors, probabilities, and other math, which allows the model to weigh the importance of different words in a sentence when generating a response. The transformer predicts the text, including the next word, sentence, or paragraph, based on the training data's typical sequence. So when we talk about GPTs, the generative pre-trained transformer is the GPT in ChatGPT. Now let me pause here, and I want to hear if anybody has any questions, thoughts, observations so far. All right, go
Deborah
ahead.
had something in the comments. She said, if pulling data from the internet to train models, so much information is not valid, true, and accurate. Is that training including this bad information?
No, it is not. That's what the big companies that do the training, they do sort that out. So here's the scoop on that. So, and it depends on there's several different GPTs out there. I'm talking about the big ones of Microsoft and Google, probably the biggest players, but there's a whole bunch of other ones too. It's surprising how many there are based on how expensive it is to build a large language model. But when you're building it, you decide what goes in there. So like if you wanted to, you could put all that bad stuff in there. I mean, you could, if it was your company and you were making decisions, you could decide, yeah, I want to include all the whatever. But they are very discriminate about what they include and don't include. They're also pretty careful about uh, the privacy of whatever's being included. It needs to be something that's publicly available, not necessarily meaning copyrighted, but publicly available. So private information, they'll probably try to exclude, but that's not necessarily a guarantee. I mean, if something's out there and it gets included, it might happen. So that's a good question, and that's an important thing to understand. It's not everything on the internet. It's what the company that built the large language model decided to put there. That does get you to another subject that is not something I was going to talk about in detail tonight because it's kind of an intro class, but it introduces but since we're just kind of talking there, it introduces something called bias. So whatever your model is trained on, this large language model, so whatever we put in there, say whatever websites, whatever books, whatever articles, um, when someone asks questions to that large language model, it's going to have to answer based on the data that it was trained on. So if it doesn't have whatever it doesn't have data about, it doesn't know about. So it's biased automatically to whatever it's trained on. So when these large companies create large language models, they try to eliminate the bias as much as possible towards whatever, like say if it was built by somebody like me, like, okay, I'm a redheaded Irish person, I love redheaded Irish things, I'm going to put all that stuff in my model. I don't care about anybody that's got brown hair or white hair, whatever. So all the answers you're going to get from Van's model have to do with red hair or Irish. Otherwise, he doesn't know what you're talking about, or he thinks it's bad. But anyway, hopefully that answers your question. Does that make sense? Any other thoughts, comments, ideas about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about training the model in respect to feeding data from like the National Library of Medicine. I live in the USA. This is local.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been across different groups lately that are out of the country, but is it possible? I don't know how it's possible to just read any publication that's out there to feed the model. So for every publication out there, how would that data be fed in? I don't know if that's being done or not.
Now that's I don't know all the details behind that, what algorithms they use or what advice they follow on how your model gets fed. But I don't know, Jenny, if you have a thought on that. Looks like you have your hand up.
I was
But
going to ask another question.
oh yeah, well, anyway, that's one thing. It depends how, and different models are trained on different things. So like some models are built to specialize in pictures. Some of them are better with words. There's all kinds of different ones. So I'm sure there's probably ones that are that might be more medical. There might be some that are more specialized on, who knows what. Uh, but it all depends on how whoever trains it. I don't believe that someone is physically going and looking at every piece of information that goes in there, like putting their eyes on it. I don't think that's happening. But I honestly don't know how, big companies like Microsoft, Google, how they figure out what they're going to put into their
If
large
they
language
could
model and what they
OCR
don't.
scan every book out there in the Library of Congress or something, if they want to get a realistic database
They
of
might be doing
information.
something like that. They might be getting, most things that are public, if it's something that's relevant though, it might be in there. And you could experiment with that too. Like you could, if you use Chat GPT or Copilot, you could ask it something that is in some textbook somewhere and see if it pops it out. And if it
I've done
and what
that.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
it
what it can do
does.
too, it'll tell you the source. Like, when you ask something to the GPT, it'll come back and tell you what the source is. At least my Copilot one does. Now it depends on different ones might do different things. Like I happen to use the enterprise version of Copilot. It comes back and it tells me the source, like, hey, here's the website where it got this from. And in this case, I might see, oh, it came from the Library of Congress and it came from, whatever site in there. So
Great
you could
notes.
figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, so it does, some of them tell you where it comes from, some of them don't. Um, but hopefully that helps you a little bit. And I don't know the answer to that big question. How do they pick and choose and do whatever?
That's
Don't know.
fine.
That's
I
above
just
my
wanted to
pay
throw it
grade.
out there to get some feedback. Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead, Jenny.
So this large language model gets created by some humans, right? They set up all these probabilities and vectors and the things you described. If I put in a query into ChatGPT and it doesn't find it in the large language model, how do I control where it's searching for the remainder of the answer?
Yeah, no, I'll kind of get into that a little bit. In the rest of the presentation, I'll talk to you a little bit. I can talk a little bit about that. And this is where it gets into the probabilities and what it's going to pick. There can be times where it'll come back and say, I don't have any, I can't find any good information about that. Those are few and far between that I've found. But what I'll do in here coming up is I'll talk about a little bit about how it picks the next word. And I've got kind of an example that we can talk about of, when I'm talking about how it's picking that next word, what it's doing. So we can table that for right now. Let me do that part and we can come back to it if it doesn't answer your question.
That works for me.
All right. Sounds good. That's a good question though. Those are both very good questions. One of them that I can't even answer about how do they pick? I don't know. There's a little bit of, someone has a conscious decision, but I don't know everything about it. Any other questions from here? I'll move on to the next slide.
We've got some other questions in the chat, but instead of me reading those, why don't y'all go ahead and ask if you want
Yeah,
to
you can just ask. Sure.
Okay, let's move on.
All right. And we can get them at the end too. I can do Q&A at the end as well. So either one is fine. So now let's talk a little bit about the high level architecture of how this works. So, and the reason I say this is it's kind of good if even as us BAs, I mean, we're not architects, we're not necessarily highly technical people, but it isn't a bad idea if you understand what's going on behind the covers, at least at a high level. I think this is valuable to know. Here's what's happening when you do these chats. So a little bit about the high level architecture. And I'm only talking about Copilot and ChatGPT here. That's one that's built by Microsoft, and the other one's built by ChatGPT. Different ones. I think there could be other ones that work slightly different than this, but I doubt it. I'm just kind of going with the big players here. So anyway, here's the architecture. So what happens is with this is, so Copilot and ChatGPT utilize something called an agent that is an intermediary between the user and the information in the large language model. So this is a simple diagram of how the agent accesses the large language model and talks with the user. So let me walk down through it. First thing that happens is the agent receives a query or command from the user. And this is where you're in that prompt and you're asking it a question. So the agent's going to receive that. So that agent is kind of a more local thing. So that agent, it's running kind of in the cloud, but this is not part of the large language model. It's its own thing. So the agent receives a query command from the user, and then it takes that command and it processes it into understand the user's intent. So it's got a little bit of pre-processing that's happening here in the agent. Then after the agent, takes a look at it and processes it, it sends that process input out to the large language model to get a response. Now this is where it's going out to whatever Microsoft's, big Microsoft Azure system, and where the large language model resides, and getting information from the large language model. So the large language model does its things, it processes it, it gives a response. the response comes back to the agent receives a response, processes it, and then gives it back to the user. So it's kind of like a 3-step process here of goes from the user to the agent to large language model and back and on for the whole conversation of what you're doing. So just at a high level, that's kind of what's happening. Now there's a whole bunch of other security, firewalls, cloud stuff, all that stuff, but conceptually, this is what's happening. So next, I want to talk a little bit about, well, let me actually back up and see if anybody has questions about this. So does it, as far as this, simple, it's almost a context diagram of what's happening. Anybody have questions, thoughts, comments about this?
Where is this information? I mean, whenever I send something to say Zoom, I know Zoom is in California or supposed to be.
Right.
Where is this stuff at? So
it's kind of cloud-based. So it's on the cloud. So it's in lots of different servers, wherever. Both the agent and the large language model are kind of cloud-based. So it's not like it's, you're hitting, like when you hit that large language model, it's not like there's some big supercomputer out there, one big supercomputer that everybody's hitting. That's the large language model. It's kind of it's in the cloud. So lots of data stuck out in the cloud as a large language model on, I don't know how many servers, thousands of servers, maybe hundreds of servers, not sure. And of course, it'd be a different large language model for each thing. So Microsoft is going to have theirs for Copilot. ChatGPT has theirs. Google has theirs. So different, and any other GPT that you, or any other GPT, or I should chat style GPT that you buy is going to have its own large language model that's out there on the cloud.
Okay,
any other questions? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. And now, yeah, I'll digress for a minute and just, there are things you can do. So you can have a thing called a small language model, which can kind of, you can control a little bit more. So like, say you're a company and you want to, you like the large language model. I like how it does the natural language recognition, but I've got a small amount of data that I want to put on my own model that I want it to hit that too. So you could have like an extra step in here where, hey, I go out and I hit my I hit my large language model to do language recognition. I hit my small language model to do specific things, like say it's medical documentation expert or something like that. You could have your own small language model that you built that you could utilize. So, but it would just be an expert on just your data. But I wasn't going to get into that too much for tonight, but know that you can do things like that. So it doesn't all have to be out here in the large language model. It can be other places too. This is just if you buy just Copilot or ChatGPT right out of the box, this is what it's doing.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, I do have a quick question. This is
shoot.
Kosi here. Yeah. So on Apple devices, they have something called Nova. Pretty much same basic principle here. But one thing I did notice is the database, or whatever you want to call it, were not refreshed. So if I ask any question past, I believe, beginning January 2024.
Like a date? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it give me the answer. So in such situation, what do you think might be the root cause of it?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what the story is with that. So when you train this large language model, it takes, like months, hours, lots and lots of computer time to train it. And it doesn't get refreshed daily. So like whatever's out in this large language model, when you trained it, like say, in my case, we stopped training it in December of this year. We finally got it done and we're finished. Now, it doesn't know anything that's happened between December of last year and now. unless we've somehow updated it. So the one thing about it, now there are some tricks and things and this part, I don't know how it all works. So I couldn't tell you about it too much. I can tell you this, like say the chat GPT that you get for free, it's got a certain date that it cuts off. So it doesn't know anything past this certain date. So other things that you pay for, they have kind of a somehow an intermediate that can go and try and get more recent information. Maybe it's not part of the large language model, but it's part of somewhere else. It's kind of like a spur that it can go off of and go, oh, you know what? I didn't find it here, but I can spur over here and I can maybe get an answer and come back to you. I think they work like that, but I'm not an expert on it. There is some tricks that they can do though, that'll make that happen. Typically they cost money. So they usually don't get that for free. But that is why it's cutting off on you, is it doesn't know anything past where it's been trained. So whatever happened yesterday, it doesn't know about.
Yeah.
So it left school and it's not educated beyond that level.
Yep. Anything else before I move on? All right. I'll keep going. So in short, generative AI models use machine learning as a kind of high-tech autocomplete. Consider this phrase. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled blank. What do you think should fill in the blank? Did you think peppers? If you did, why did you think peppers? The answer is probably because both consciously and unconsciously, you considered the entire sentence and combined that with your historical knowledge of either a popular nursery rhyme or simply your memory of others repeating the phrase. Generative AI thinks in much the same way. It considers the entire context of a sentence, image, soundbite, video recording, etc., and combines that with its vast memory of other existing content to fill in the blank using probability. Now, that's all great, and this is kind of getting into where we talk about Jenny's question, I think, to some extent. So consider another example. Okay, how would you complete the phrase, the customer asked about the invoice blank? So you could come off mute for a minute and shout something out if you want to. The customer asked about the invoice. Amount. Total. Say date, terms. And now let me continue on. So could be a lot of different answers, right? So this one's not as easy. This one, there's not necessarily a correct answer. There's not necessarily a most probable answer. So what happens with this is, if we think about this example, the customer asked about the invoice blank. Two things emerge. First, there's no probable word to fill in the blank. There's not one that's the most likely. And second, the word choice that fills in this blank is going to dramatically affect what comes next. Because if you ask about the invoice date, then it's going to continue on and talk about dates. If it's going to be amounts, then we're going to be talking about dollars. If we're talking about terms, then we're going to be talking about, how much has got to be paid when, what's the minimum payment, things like that. What are the terms of the credit? We may be talking about credit. So what happens there is the second word, the word can change dramatically, the word that's chosen can dramatically change what comes next. So if you're using a generative AI language model, you might be tempted to think, hey, whatever the model picked is got to be the right word. So and that's not necessarily the case. So it's going to pick a word. The model is going to pick a word for you. Whatever it thinks, it might pick date, it might pick amount, it might pick terms, and then it's going to continue on with the conversation. So it may or may not be what you want. So what that's called and this is a big deal, is probably one of and I'll get to it here in a minute. So probability of what the word's going to be, it's all about likelihood. What's the most likely word to complete? So, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Yep, that's going to be like the most likely word all the time. GPTs can choose the most probable word to fill in the blank, but sometimes they might not pick the proper one. This variation in probability results in something called a hallucination. Think of our customer asked about the invoice blank example. In this case, there could be many ties for the next probable word. The generative AI has to pick one. If the chosen word is off track, further conversation based on the chosen word can cause the results to go farther and farther off track in a snowball effect. This is what's called an AI hallucination. Simply put, a hallucination is a false, inaccurate, or illogical result. One example of an AI hallucination happened in the legal context. It happened in 2023 when a lawyer in New York used ChatGPT to assist with legal research on a personal injury case against an airline. Unfortunately, the AI hallucinated and generated several fake legal cases, which the lawyer then cited in a legal brief. The court discovered this and the cited cases were, the court discovered that the cited cases were entirely fabricated, leading to significant consequences for the lawyer. This incident highlights the importance of verifying the information provided by AI tools. Hallucination, and here's probably one of the key things, hallucination is one of the biggest, if not the biggest problem with generative AI. So, it can hallucinate and it can come back and it can give you things like this guy, fake legal cases that look plausible at first glance, and only when the court, it got past him. It's when probably the defense was probably looking at it. They're like, wow, this is not even real. And then I don't know what happened to him after that, but it wasn't good. So hallucinations where things can get off track. And that's really probably one of the biggest problems with AI. Probably.
One of the participants, Julian, said she likes the word delusion. They do seem delusional sometimes, but they're convincing.
Absolutely. Yep. It's kind of an idiot savant, it's a savant, but it doesn't know when it's getting off track. It can't read your body language. It can't know what your context is. It can't know a lot of things. Even if you give it every piece of information that you can, it still might have a hard time. So it's not going to be perfect. I guess what I'm getting at is you got to take whatever you get out of AI with a grain of salt. You have to be aware that hallucinations from the AI can look pretty real. So just something to keep in mind. So that's something I kind of want to talk about. And I think that might touch a little bit on what you were asking about, Jenny. Hopefully that helps. Now let me pause there. Any questions, thoughts, observations about that?
So should ChatGPT users really test that information that comes back from large language model to see if it's true?
You just want to just be aware that whatever it comes back with, depending on what you're going to do with it, you might want to verify that it's right. So especially if you're going to take something to court or something like that, better check it. If you're going to give a presentation to your executives on something that you pulled out of ChatGPT, you better check it. So it does give you the sources in some cases, like this guy, I'm not sure what he used or what he saw for sources, like our version of Copilot shows you the sources that you had. So you can go and look at that and go, hey, is that a legit source? Or is that, oh yeah, that came from VanMiller's website, when he built when he was in high school, yeah, that's no good. It could come back with some stuff like that. You don't know. So anyway, something to be aware of. For a large part, it's pretty good. You know, like what's going to come back is pretty good. And if you think about it too, like when you're talking to people, people tell you stuff that's wrong all the time too. So this thing's kind of no different. It thinks it knows what it's talking about, and it might even be able to talk a good game, but it may not be right. Just like people, you can talk to them, they can talk a good game, and they're still not right. So y'all have seen that before. So you can get that same type of thing with AI. All right, so I see we're getting late on time, so I'm gonna have to move things along a little bit. So let me keep going here a little bit more. So next, let's talk a little bit about security. So, and this is one of the key things. So when you have conversations with GPTs, you need to be aware of what's being shared with the large language model. Many free GPTs share the information in your conversations to help train the large language model. So, you know, if you're using a free GPT, be aware of what it might be doing with your data, because it might be using it for other things that you might not know and may not want. So to get around that, there are enterprise implementations that occur. So enterprise implementations of GPTs, like in our company, the company I work for, we use Copilot. That's a Microsoft product. And it can be set up to not share our conversations in our whole company with the large language model. So it kind of firewalls it off. So we get the data out of the model, but our data doesn't go back in and train that model. This is a situation in my company. It may not be the situation in yours. So you should understand, you know, make sure that you understand how your GPT is set up before you share any sensitive information in a conversation. So just a word to be aware of there. And I'll pause for a second for any thoughts, ideas about that. All
Several
right.
of you in the comments have asked about cybersecurity. That's really what you're talking about here, Van,
This is,
right?
yeah, it's kind of security of your data. Like when you use the free GPTs and things, probably there's a little thing that comes up, goes, I don't know if you, I don't use them, so I don't know. Like when you say, hey, I agree to all this, probably one of the things in there is like, it probably doesn't say, hey, I'm not going to use your data to update my large language model. A lot like when you use Google search, like, you know, Google search uses your thing to sell to other marketing companies or whatever. Yeah, Van looked for an umbrella. Yeah, let's send Van a bunch of stuff about umbrellas. This stuff's the same way, unless you have an implementation that doesn't do that. And there's two things. I mean, it could be it's using your information for marketing. It could be it's using your information to train the large language model. So it's like, hey, I'm looking at your conversation and I'm seeing, okay, it took Van a while to get to whatever answer. I can make the model better so that people like Van could get to the answer quicker if I monitored his conversation and, you know, included that in the large language model training. So something to be aware of. So definitely when you're outside of work, you know, like definitely do not take your work stuff, put it onto your home chat GPT and start doing stuff, because that is not going to be safe. That's one of the big selling points of Microsoft's Copilot is you can set up that safety in the implementation. And I only know about Copilot because that's the only one that I've worked with in that capacity. But I figure ChatGPT's probably got some equivalent thing to that as well, and probably Google. So anyway, something to be very aware of. So let me move on to the next thing. So let's talk a little bit about prompting. Prompting is the key to having the GPT give you the best result. You need to provide context to the GPT. You know, like when you're having a human conversation, you can see context, and you also maybe know the person's background or whatever. So there's a lot of things that happen in human conversation that are nonverbal, that aren't even, you know, that aren't written down. You can just tell because you know that person, you've worked with them before, or you can see it in their eyes, their face, you can read their eyes. So anyway, GPTs, they can't do any of that. They don't know any of that. They only know the context that you give it. So here are some key components that you can add to a prompt that will help you get the best result. Number one, you need to state your goal. You know, what do you want from the GPT? Number two, You need to apply some context, like why do you need it and who is involved. Set some expectations. How should the GPT respond to best fulfill your request? That's kind of an important one too. Like, how do you want it to answer you? What do you want it to give you back? Especially if it's some kind of a table or something like that. It's like, hey, give me this back in a table. It can do that. Or it can, how big of an answer do you want? Oh, I want 2 paragraphs, or I want, 500 words or less. So that's important to declare how you want it back, to say how you want it back, and then also declare your source. To some extent, you can declare the source of where you want it to come from. So, I want it to come from the IIBA's website, something like that. Now, you don't have to do all of these things, but the more context that you can provide, the better your result's going to be. Also, please know that this is very simplest prompting advice I can give you. There are many more aspects of prompting that get into prompt engineering, which is an entire subject, almost a science of its own, that we could talk for hours just about prompt engineering if we wanted to. This is like prompting 101. If you haven't done very much prompting, if you use this, it'll help you. Now I can pause here for a minute for thoughts, observations. I was checking the time. We've got about 8 minutes left, but I'm getting close to the end, so we'll be okay. All right, let me move on. Okay, so let's talk about some use cases for GPTs. So the number one use case, I think, this is just my opinion, is you can use a GPT like a high-powered internet search tool, research tool. So unlike Google search or other search engines, GPTs can understand context. And it will allow you to have a conversation with it to help you find what you need. So that's, I think, probably how most people use GPTs. And it's probably, I would say, the killer app for a GPT. Now, let me move on to another thing. So along the lines of information searches, another thing I wanted to make you aware of is that you can use GPTs. In my case, it's Copilot. I'm very familiar with Copilot. I haven't used other enterprise versions of things, but you can use Copilot to create a specialized agent that can ground your conversations with information in specified websites. And when I say grounding, what that means is grounding causes the agent to prioritize the use of the specified information before pulling information from the LLM. So this can allow you to create expert agents on the information you specify. For example, Copilot has pre-built agents like Writing Coach. And this Writing Coach is an agent that prioritizes expert writing sites and sources before the other data in the LLM. So it's going to focus in on giving you better writing information, writing advice. Now, for fun and to learn a little bit, I created an agent that specializes in information contained on the main IIBA website. So you can create these agents. You can say, hey, give me a list of sites, websites or site, and and it will use that before it uses the large language model. So it gets all the benefits of the large language model of knowing natural language recognition, but then it tries to pull the data from whatever websites or other sources you specify. You can use files as well, and it'll pull that information. It works pretty good. I got it to works pretty well. You can ask questions about whatever, and it'll hit the IIBA website first and try to answer from that. And then if it can't, it goes out to the large language model. And I played around with it some more too, just an FYI. So I also created one over our company's SharePoint site. So in that case, this case, when you're kind of trying to read a SharePoint, it would sort of work, but it would struggle with attachments. Like in SharePoint, you can have attachments to your documents. It would kind of struggle with those. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. And also it would struggle with some of the web links. That you can make agents that are specialized in your data if you want to, depending. So I'll pause here for a second. Are any of you doing anything like that where you're trying to specialize or ground your GPTs in specific data?
I
If
think
not, that's
that may be a new concept.
That's okay. And if it is, that's okay. It's just something, hey, realize that you can do that. So it's kind of a cool thing. Might be useful to business and things like that for, hey, if I have like a repository of information that I have in a website, we could build an agent over top of that to let you query that information, pretty easily. Like these agents, they're quick to build. Like I'm not a superstar or anything. I built the thing in like 10 minutes. It leads you pretty well. At least Copilot does. I figure the other ones do too. But anyway, I wanted to let you know that that's a capability that's out there. Now, let me move on.
Actually, I could add on to something too that a good use case
go
for
ahead.
agents. So one of the things too, I am also kind of like a car mechanic myself as well, and I figured out a problem. So a lot of people nowadays our age don't know anything about cars or anything like that, right? So I've actually built a car mechanic agent where,
Oh,
as a
cool.
BA, you'd insert all the data about your car, all the information. Behind the scenes, you train an agent to be a mechanic. And I also made it specify to a location, so it also gave you the prices. It's
Oh,
trained
cool.
on, like for instance, I made an agent for my girlfriend who's nothing about cars. So it's perfectly trained completely on her car. It has anything, for instance, like, hey, what oil do I get? What all this stuff I get? And now I've had people, reach out to me and wants this stuff because they're interested. And like I said, it helps people for a good cause, solves a problem that, like for instance, a lot of people don't know anything about car mechanic shops. This helps them ease it down. So just kind of a use case of what is possible with these ChatGPT agents and such. I use them a lot. So very, very useful.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. That's great. So food for thought for y'all. And they're not that hard to build. It's not very complicated. They lead you through it pretty well. It's pretty neat. It's kind of magical. So now let me now this slide here, these are, I talked about, hey, I'm part of a team where we tried to identify different use cases for our work. Now I work at an insurance company, and what we did was I have a team of about 5 people, and these are the kind of low-hanging fruit that we identified as good use cases for GPT. Now, depending on what you do, like, depending on what systems you use, what industry you're in, so on and so forth, you could have a lot of different answers than I do. So this is by no means, like, oh yeah, this is the list. This is a list that, based on the work that we do, like Thea, me, and Jenny Stein's in here, the 3 of us, this is what some of our peers thought might be very useful. So I'll walk down through them real quick since we got about a minute. Well, I'm not sure I have time to explain each one. It's up to you all. Do you want me to go down through and explain them? I kind of probably took a little bit longer on some of the previous stuff than I maybe should have, but
I don't think we're going to have time, but what you've given to us is a really good start.
If you're interested, do a screen capture of this and say, hey, here's some different things, use cases we found. And I was just going to walk down through them and know that, hey, you know what, it can figure out code. It can help you write code. Just today, for example, an extra use case that I wanted to add here is, Thea used a GPT to help her with a structured query language query, so it knows SQL. So I'll kind of wrap it up here if y'all are game. So think about it this way, AI is another tool in your tool belt. The best way to learn about it is to use it. Some people are afraid that AI applications could replace them. However, I don't think BAs need to worry. Why? Because hammers don't build houses, people do. And with that, I want to thank you all for your time and attention. I hope you take away a few nuggets from this presentation, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Van. I want to bring out one thing that came from my training today that I had on AI. It said basically, if you learn how to use AI, you're not going to be replaced by AI necessarily, but you may replace somebody else who never learns how to use AI.
That's a pretty
Learn
good
how to
point.
use AI. I mean, just go out and try it out. See what happens. I've been shocked at the things that are out there. It's the smartest assistant you could ever wish you had. But still got to verify. Trust but verify. Thank you very much. Next week, we have a guest, and I didn't tell y'all this earlier. I'm so sorry. Kevin Tan is coming. Kevin Tan wrote a book on BPMN, Business Process Modeling Notation. He made it easy. So if you want to learn how to map your processes, I encourage you to attend next week. He's going to kind of do a mini workshop. So we will see you there. And I appreciate every single one of you for showing up. And those of you being on camera, thank you again. I appreciate that. Thank you, Van.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys.